Welcome to another Ozarks Voices oral history interview, a project of Missouri State University Libraries and its Ozarks Studies Institute initiative. I'm Craig Amason with the University Libraries, and today's date is Monday, February 17th, 2020. Our special guest is Mr. Steve McElhany, and we are at his home in Republic, Missouri. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here today to talk with you.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Just for the record, can you start off by telling us when and where you were born?
I was born in Springfield in 1954, January 17th.
And what can you tell us about your formative years, growing up, school, community, everything?
Went to school all 12 years at Republic. Grew up where the home place, which my brother has most of it now, and just moved into the old homestead. And then, of course, after I got out of school, went to work for the railroad and moved down here on my grandfather's place that he bought in 1920. It'll be 100 years this year that I've lived on this farm. And of course, my dad grew up here in the old farmhouse. Still have it.
So this year, this becomes a century farm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent.
It could be, yeah. The place where my brother is at, that was part of it, was my great-grandfather had owned, and I think that dated back to 1896, and then my great-great-grandfather had land there on ZZ, and he come up here from Tennessee in 1837, and the land there, he got it in 1850, and basically been in some McElhany from 1850 on.
Did he buy the land, or?
Yes, I don't know who he bought it from.
Okay.
But, and then some of it ended up with one of his daughters, and then my great-granddad bought from his sister, and that was in 1896.
Okay. And migrating from Tennessee, you said?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, Granger County.
That's good. Because that was going to be my next question, if you know anything about the ancestry.
Yeah.
So, growing up in Republic, what was that like, going to school?
Well, you knew everybody in school, and then, of course, just like going from where we lived, which is about 3 miles from their off of ZZ and Hines Street to the school, and pretty well knew everybody on that street, or that road. I say street because that's what it is now. Basically, it's just pretty well grown up in houses, and as you can see across the road here and back behind me, just turning into houses.
Right.
And like I say, you knew everybody one way or the other. Everybody, it's what's surprising how many people milk. Everybody had a few cows, and now there's nobody milking. In fact, going in, there's only one person that's got cattle, and he's got the land rented. Same way down here from Hines Street, which is down to here, 2.5 miles. I'm the only one left with any cattle on this street now. So
really?
Just about disappeared.
And just beef cattle is what you've got.
Right. Beef cattle is the only thing I have.
So this was a pretty heavy dairy area at one time?
There was, everybody had a few, I'm not going to say they had big dairy farms, but, some of them might have 25 to 30, but everybody had a few cows that they milked just to be able to stay on the farm, basically.
Okay, so were most of them, you think, milking for themselves, or were they selling as well?
They were selling it.
Okay, they were selling.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the community here. What did you do for fun? Did you do anything for fun?
Oh, well, we always were playing baseball, or in summertime playing baseball, or hauling hay. I don't know if that was fun, but at least we'd have fun when we got done, go swimming or something, find a creek. But just, you'd go, once you was able to drive, that was when it really got fun. You could go up to I'm trying to think what would be the proper places, the places where you could go get a hamburger and stuff, or go to Springfield, go to the drive-in theater. That was a lot of fun on the weekends.
So try to get to the city, to Springfield on the weekends, maybe?
Yeah.
That was probably a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Most of your friends were on farms as well at that time?
Yeah, and there was some, as far as the city grew up with, that we'd run around with, lived in town.
So you grew up on a farm.
Right. Yeah.
Describe the farm operation and what role you had in it when you started. Helping.
Basically, I probably got a calf given to me when I was probably about, well, first thing I got was a lamb from a grandfather, and then I got a calf, and then just kept raising, getting calves from the cow once it got big enough to have some calves.
How old were
And
you?
I was about 6 when I got my first sheep and calf, and then my job basically was, of course, my dad, he worked construction, and then he always milked. And then once my brother, who was about 6 years older than me, got old enough, he took over the milking part, and I was feeding the baby calves and whatever else needed fed around there.
So, if having an older brother, did he help you? Help introduce you into the operation at all? Was he heavily involved in the farm operation
Yes,
by the time you came around?
Right, he was. He did all the milking once he got old enough, and then my dad got out of it, and which that's tough. And there's a lot of people did that. Worked out and then milked. And so that was, of course, it's tough with my brother too, because he was going to school milking, and then then he started milking full time, and did that for probably over 40 years.
Oh wow!
And then he got out because it's just a hard way to make a living, find help and everything. So.
Was labor a big problem?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, as far as the milking part, because you just couldn't find anybody to help that much. So.
You grew up on a farm, you worked on a farm as a child, you eventually became a farmer. When did you decide that's what I want to do? Was there a time, or did it just come natural?
I think that's something it's in your blood, and you always wanted to have something. I knew that growing up that I probably was going to have to do something else, because that's what I seen. Like my dad, he worked out, but he still had cattle and everything, so I knew that I was going to have to find a job, or go to school, or find a job, whichever come first. So anyway, I found the job before I was enrolled in school, and I got on at the railroad before I had to actually go. So I always said, MSU or Southwest Missouri cost me $20. That's what I paid for an enrollment. But anyway, I went on to work for the railroad and never did look back, and then always had cattle from then on.
How long did you work for the railroad?
42 and a half years.
42 and a half. And you retired from the railroad?
Yeah.
But all during those 42 and a half years, you had livestock?
Always had cattle, yeah. Just beef cattle. I didn't
just
milk.
Beef cattle.
I would help my brother milk when I could, let him get away from.
Yeah. So basically just cattle. Any crops?
We did corn and wheat, and we did the corn for silage, and of course, all of it just got to be so much, labor intensive or whatever to do, and just couldn't keep up doing all the thing. It was enough just putting up hay, and then of course we used to do a lot of square bales, and finally got out of that. I can't think how long it's been since we done a square bales. We still got the square baler, but
really,
yeah. But we just went to round bales, and that was a lifesaver.
Yeah, so many farmers have said that to me.
Yeah.
That's been a very common thing, that when we went to round bales, that changed everything.
Yes, yeah, it helped a bunch.
So, for some farmers in this area, farming was their family's primary source of income. Would you say that farming was more of a supplement for
yes,
you?
For me. Now, both of my grandparents, on my dad and my mom's side, that's all they did was just farm, and they made a living, and that's what they done. On my mom's side was he raised more hogs. He didn't milk, but he raised a lot of hogs and sold breeding stock and everything, and put up a lot of hay and sold hay. And his place was over where the James River church is now, and the freeway come through there and split it. And anyway, my cousin still owns some of the old house where he lived and my mom grew up. So.
That's also a common thing, especially with close to Springfield. The sprawling development had a huge impact on farms and closing down farms.
Right. Yeah. There's just nowhere to expand really.
Right.
around here.
And the pressure to sell was
Right, yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah, it's just...
I'm interested, I've asked this question multiple times with farmers. How do you market and sell your cattle?
I always just say when I need some money, I sell. But generally try to get the calves up. I don't background anything. I just wean them generally. Might wean them off the cow for a few weeks, or sometimes might just wean them right off the cow, which that is not good now because they really want them background more. Mm-hmm. And then I just generally I do go to the stockyards over here at I-44 and MM. Mm-hmm. So,
how old are your calves when you sell them?
Oh, they'll be 8 to 10 months generally, and they'll weigh 650 to 750. Mm-hmm. So,
did you ever or have you taken advantage of services provided by the extension office or other departments of the University of Missouri or MSU?
Well, I'm not MSU, but as far as the county extension, have messed with them as far as different things. Like want to get ready to build a pond or something, mm-hmm. and or basically that's the main thing I can think of. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just go to them for advice, or technical advice, and that sort of thing.
See where's a good place to build, if it'll hold or not.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
And now we get into broader themes. What are the biggest benefits to farming in the Ozarks, do you think, in this part of the country?
Well, you've got good access to markets. And it's just a good lifestyle to be able to be outside and raising the cattle, give you extra money, supplement your income.
Mm-hmm. Nice part of the country to live,
right? Yeah,
and be outdoors, so forth. And then on the other side, what are the greatest challenges of farming?
Being able, just depends on where you live at, being able to expand, because the land has got so high to buy. It's just hard to, and then machinery is the next thing, just hard to keep up with all of it.
That's so much different than when your grandparents were farmers, whereas the equipment, then the high-tech equipment just didn't exist.
Right.
And so the expensive equipment, even in relation to income, was not nearly as great, I assume.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, that'd be right. Just a lot cheaper to get it, even though I know it's high for them, but it's still, they didn't have as much machinery, I would say, as what you need now. So.
I know farming has changed during your lifetime and your time as a farmer.
Right.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen that have had the most impact?
Oh, well, the machinery, how it's gotten so expensive, and then the round baler to me was a big deal.
Tell me a little bit about why that was so impactful.
Because when you was having to do square bales, you had to have the barn space to put it up. That you had to get it put up, and it just labor intensive. So once you got the round baler, you could let them sit outside, and even though if you could put them in, it'd be a lot nicer because they'll keep. But you don't have to have the barn space. You don't have to have the labor, and just helped a bunch, I think, anyway.
Was the cost of the machinery to do round bale, was that cost effective compared to what you had to have for square bales, like barns?
Yes, right. Yes, yeah. Because like I say, you had to have barns for the square bales, and the machinery wasn't. You still had to have a square baler and brakes and everything. The round baler would be somewhat higher, but for what you saved with not having to have barn space and the labor, made up for it a bunch.
Yeah. But what about transporting hay? Was it much easier to transport round bales as opposed to square bales too?
Yeah, because you could move them. A lot of people got spike on their truck, or you could get a trailer to move them. Mm-hmm. And you can do this basically by yourself, whereas square bales, you're going to have some help.
So. With your hay production, are you selling hay at all, or are you just using it for your own?
Put up our own.
For your own cows.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to buy hay?
Not when my brother was milking, he'd buy square bales, buy alfalfa, because we just didn't raise that much alfalfa here. Mainly just fescue or orchard grass and
Right.
clover. So
But you can produce enough hay for your
we
own.
have, yeah.
Got
We
it.
basically, it's just funny. Last year we decided, or in 2019, we decided to get out of putting up hay because it's just become a chore, and so we're going to have to buy this year or do something different. So, which is fine. It's time.
Yeah.
So.
What would you say, just your own observation, and outside your own operation, are the most significant changes that have taken place in farming in this area, that have changed it? I mean, you talked about how when you were growing up, this road was full of farms, and they're gone.
Well, what's changed, whereas there's just not as many, is how the town has expanded and more people have, just moved in here, and the housing additions being built and people moving in on like 5 or 10 acres. There's just not as much ground for farming around the Republic, basically Republic Springfield. So.
And are there other opportunities to make a living now? More opportunities to make a living than there were, 50 years ago, outside of farming.
Well, yeah, I think there's more jobs to do. I mean, whereas when they were like my grandparents farming, that's basically there wasn't a lot of jobs to pick from. That's the reason they did this, and now there is more jobs in town that you can go to.
And even when you were coming along, I'm curious to know, you started out with the railroad. What about some of your friends who were raised on farms? Did they do the same thing? Did they find jobs, or did they go to college? Or
some went to college, and most found jobs, and very, very few are still farming. I mean, there's a few I can think of still have some cattle, but most of them.
But a lot of the people that you grew up with are not farming anymore.
No.
Yeah. Just not profitable for them.
Right. They're just to be able to get enough land to do something. At least around here, it's just not feasible to do.
What other ways has technology changed farming that you're aware of?
Well, the weather. I mean, you can just it helps putting up hay and everything. You can watch it so much more. I mean, most time it's pretty good.
Forecasting.
Yeah. Yeah. But that to me is a big deal, I think.
Has computer technology?
It's there. I guess if you were bigger into more crops and stuff, it would help and everything. But from what I do, it's...
For the smaller operations, it's not that essential?
No, I don't think it is, as far as myself anyway. So.
Has the increasing divide between small farms and very large farms, almost industrial sized farms, has that affected the operation of farming in this region?
Well, yeah, you'll see more big farms. That's what it's going to. There's not a lot of small farms. The only ones that you see is just the ones that have been able to hang on through their family farms, I think. You don't see a lot of people come in and start off with a small farm.
Right. It's either get big or go.
Yeah, because it's all about volume. That's how you're going to make your money.
Right. Would you say that a lot of the people who are still operating small farms in this area do it because of the love for it and because it's sort of in their blood, or?
Right. Yeah. They do like it and enjoy it. You'd have to, because there's not you do make some money, but there's not a lot of profit when you figure your time and everything, and if anything goes wrong. So.
Yeah, and things can go wrong and be pretty much disastrous if for some, especially row crops and that sort of thing. I can imagine you could have a drought and
or not be able to get enough hay put up. And if you got to start buying hay, you're not going to make a lot sometimes.
Right. Have you ever thought, well, I've had enough of this. I'm going to stop.
Well, I don't know, totally stop, but just slow down. Mm-hmm. It's time. I mean, I still want to be out there, but it's time, because if we do want to go travel, you know, you've got to worry about making sure somebody's watching things. And
right.
It's not like now, if something gets out, they're going to be people's houses, where if something used to get out 20, 30 years ago, they're just going to be somebody's field. So
now they could be in somebody's front yard.
Right. So it's a big difference.
Yeah. Sure. Especially as close as you are to development here. I mean, you've got development all around you here now.
Right.
Right across the street, you've
Right.
got houses going in, right?
Yeah, on both sides. And if they get out now, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, right. I'm curious to know about this development that's going in across the road there. Was that whose land was that at some point? I mean, that was. I assume that was farmland at some point.
Right. Fugit's, I don't know, Fugit Farms, they had that at one time. And before that, I can't think who they bought it from. And then it's been sold to Gary Henry who had Henry's Wrecking Service. And then now Hancock has it, which is Donald. And he's developing what's left of it. Mm-hmm. But it's sort of funny, like when Fugit used to have it, they'd come by, mainly when I was living up here in the farmhouse, let us know and say, well, we're getting ready to drive he always raised Holstein steers, and so we're getting ready to drive our steers from up here down the road to the farm down here and drive right down the road, probably 80 to 100 head.
That must have been a sight, yeah right? Yeah. Was that a large tract of land across the road?
Yeah, there was... I think there was 99. It should have been 100 acres. But there's one house out of the corner up there, mm-hmm. So about 99 acres.
How do you envision the future of farming in the Ozarks? Is it a bright future, or is it a dim future, or what is it going to look like 50 years from now?
As much change as what I've seen, the way things keep growing, I don't know if there'll be a lot left in this area. You might, if you go north, it might be mm-hmm. more, you know, I'm guessing Ash Grove, Walnut Grove, that area, Fair
right.
Grove. But this area, I don't think there's going to be a lot left. Because just from what I see now on the two roads I travel, there's not hardly any cattle left.
Right, and it seems like there's almost, Republic is almost like an extension of Springfield. It's
right.
just, you go from Springfield to Republic and
you
can't hardly tell the difference if you.
And it's like the last I heard in the Republic School District, there's one dairy left. So
one.
And in the county, I keep hearing there's under 10. I don't know if it's like 7 or 8. I'm not heard for sure, but there's not very many even in the county. So that tells you there's not going to be there'll still be people that have a few acres, still keep a few cattle, but.
Predominantly is the people who are still farming in this area, they have cattle.
Right, yeah.
Correct?
Right, yeah.
People got out of hogs around the middle of the 20th century, it sounded like. Sheep maybe even earlier than that.
Right. Well, you'll see some sheep and goats on smaller farm, mm-hmm. and that might be how some go too that want to be out, because, you know, it's not as, you don't need as much ground, but mm-hmm. you're going to have some good fences. So.
Yeah. And chickens, I mean, now, if who can compete with...
Right, yeah.
Tyson and the yes.
Yeah. You'll have a few, because every once in a while I'll hear somebody's got a rooster or something, you'll hear crowing. So.
Right, but those are more just hobbies,
right.
Or just eggs for yourself or something,
right.
But they're not really for production,
right.
I assume.
Yeah.
And row crops are...
I don't see a lot.
I mean, you just got to have a lot of land,
mm-mm.
you know?
And there's not as much row crop ground around
right.
here, too. You've got to get more west and north.
Right. If someone were considering becoming a farmer now in the Ozarks, what advice would you give them?
Go in, don't go in real big. Just start off slow and you know, don't buy a lot of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just you do need a tractor and probably a bush hog, but you be better off trying to buy hay.
Mm-hmm.
And then just sort of go at it easy.
Yeah, go at it easy. Yeah. And I've heard other farmers say that unless you inherit some land, if you actually are having to buy the land in this area, you'll probably never recoup your costs.
Right, it's pretty hard, I think.
Right. So you just about have to have land to begin with if you're going to make it.
Right, and you could, and that's the other thing. There's not a lot of land to rent either now because it's all been taken up. That you might get on further away. There you go again. Just depends on your job, how far you want to get. If you're having to drive to Springfield to work or something,
Right.
and go at it that way. But,
Yeah. If someone wanted to farm, would your best advice be, well, you got to have another job besides farming?
right, yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, even your generation, that became
right, yeah, I knew I was going to have to do because I just couldn't go out and buy ground at the time to be able to do it on my own. So.
Yeah. So many farmers, it sounds like it is sort of a passion, and it's in their blood. And for even some I've talked to said, I don't really have to do it now.
Right.
I do it just because I love
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah. It's a hobby. Everybody's got their things they like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Anything we didn't cover? Or?
Sounds like we've hit most everything.
Okay, great. This has been very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.